What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Will we see any changes to Social Security in 2025? That's what I want to talk about today. So you have some Congress people that are out there talking about some different changes that they want to see. And one change that I will, and I don't have that on as part of the five, but I want to talk about that one separately. And that is eliminating taxes on people receiving Social Security benefits. That's something that we heard, that was a promise that was made by President Trump. And so we'll have to see if that is implemented, but that's something that's new. This list that I'm going to show you is a list of things that have been talked about over the years. Will they actually implement them in 2025? So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at my illustration here. So we're going to talk about the 5 changes that we could see in 2025 when it comes to Social Security. So increase the retirement age. We've heard a number of politicians talking about raising the full retirement age, raising it from 67 to 70. And so, or 67 to 69. Some politicians will actually give you numbers, but some politicians won't. They just say, you know, we need to raise the full retirement age. People are living longer, blah, blah, blah. But they don't get into the details of, okay, are we talking about 1 year? Are we talking about 3 years? What are we talking about here? Are we talking about even more than 3 years? Some politicians might have that in mind. Now, so that's one change that we could see. Now, increasing the retirement age. Now, the reason that they want to do this is for more financial stability for Social Security. Okay, now this is not a fix-all, and that's something that politicians don't tell you either. They'll come out and they'll say, yes, we can raise the full retirement age. That's how we can reform Social Security, so the trust funds won't be depleted in 8 or 9 years. Well, they might be right. They won't be depleted at 8 or 9 years, but they might be depleted in 12 or 11 years. So it doesn't fix the problem. It just delays the trust funds being depleted by a few years. So they need to do more. You can't just raise the full retirement age and that be it. But some politicians, that's what they're going to tell you. That's a solution. Raise the full retirement age. Okay, so higher payroll tax revenue. So that's basically bringing in more money, or actually not having to pay out as much because people will have to wait longer before they can receive Social Security benefits. And realistically, it's a cut to Social Security benefits, because if we're talking about raising the full retirement age, let's say from 67 to 70, that means that you have a shorter window where you can collect Social Security benefits. So you're going to collect less. We all have an expiration date. We don't know what that expiration date is, but we all have that date. And so if we're in a situation where we've been told that we need to wait an extra 3 years before you can retire, that's 3 years that we're not going to be collecting Social Security benefits. And then the argument you hear from politicians is people are living longer, so that's why we should raise the full retirement age. Well, if you're living longer, okay, that's good, but you still should be able to get your money when you were promised that you would be able to get your money. And so I don't really think that that's a metric that politicians should use, that people are living longer, so that's why we should raise the full retirement age. And the life expectancy goes up and down. It doesn't just stay the same. And so it could go up 1 year and then come down the next year. So we don't know. We don't know exactly what's going on there. So last thing here is, it says encouragement to work longer, which, I mean, you're not really, you're being encouraged, I guess, but you're also being forced, because if you want to collect your full retirement, you're going to have to wait for a number of years before you can retire. It changes your whole retirement plans. Okay, number 2, adjustment of benefit calculations. I talked a little bit about this. I've talked about this before in videos, but when it comes down to it, let's say you have higher income earners and you have lower income beneficiaries. The higher income earners, they means test Social Security, and then what they want to do is do it more. So if you're a higher income earner, you don't need as much when it comes to Social Security benefits, so they reduce your benefits, and then they provide more benefits to the lower income beneficiaries. And so balancing things. And so that's something that I've also heard politicians talk about, and you don't hear it as much, but that's something that could be on the table. So we're in a situation now where, let's say you have people who have a lot of money now. If you are in a situation where you're a high income earner, I'm sure what they would probably do is they would means test the program, reduce your benefits, but then give you some type of tax break. That's probably what we would see happen. And then they would provide more money for the lower income. So that's another change that we could see. The third one, expansion of benefits for caregivers. And so let's say you're in a situation where you're working and one of your family members is gravely ill, and now you need to stop working, go home, and take care of your family member, and it could be for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Well, guess what? you have that 35 years that the Social Security Administration uses in order to calculate your Social Security benefits. But if you have to be a caregiver and you have to take care of a family member, well, now you're in a situation where your benefits, your Social Security benefits in the end can be impacted because you're not going to work that full 35 years and your earnings are going to be a lot less for those years that you're a caregiver. And so I want to look at some of the pros and cons here. So if you expand benefits for caregivers, and so basically what it would mean is you can be a caregiver, you could be at home, and you're still going to be able to earn credits. And so what that would do, that would increase government costs because as we stated, they're using the 35 years or doing the calculations there. And so they would include caregiver as part of the calculations. So it would basically, if you're receiving Social Security benefits, you're going to receive a little bit more because they're not going to penalize you for being a caregiver. Potential for abuse. Now, this is big because some people could abuse this. They could say, yes, I'm taking care of a family member who's ill, but they're not really taking care of a family member. They're just not working. And so that's something that they would have to look into, and you'd have to have manpower out there to really do the research and find out if these people are really taking care of an ill family member. Okay, administrative complexity, and that's kind of goes along with it. So you're going to have people that are going to have to be out there constantly investigating these situations to make sure that everything's on the up and up. And then it will have an impact on overall benefits, and we talked about that. And then eligibility challenges. And so who's eligible, who's not? How are they going to determine if someone is taking care of someone who's gravely ill or just ill? So that's something else that needs to be considered. Now, let's take a look at some of the pros. So financial stability. So you'll be earning a little bit more money when you retire because you were a caregiver and you were still getting credits at that time. Recognition of caregiving. So the fact that we have to realize that this happens. Life happens, and you could be in this situation where you do have to take care of someone and you can't work while you're taking care of them. So you have to actually quit your job. And then another benefit, earn Social Security credits. So we talked about that. Reduced penalty for caregiving. So that's good. And then support for family. So you'll be able to collect your credits and still support your family. So that's good. Okay, number 4, enhanced cost of living adjustments. Now I want to talk about this because this is very important. Right now they're using the Consumer Price Index for wage earners and clerical staff. That's what they use. That's a metric. They're taking July, August, and September, and that's how they calculate COLA. Now, the only problem with that is we're talking about wage earners and clerical staff. We're talking about people who are working right now. That's a metric that they're using. If you look at CPI, the Consumer Price Index, what that is just think of it like this. It's a shopping cart of different items that people spend money on every month. And every month you're going to get the CPI score. And they're going to show you, okay, the price of things, the price of these different items. And so that's how they're calculating COLA. And COLA is based on inflation. And so if you're using that metric and you're not using what you should be using as the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, because that will reflect how elderly people spend money. And so just think of shopping carts. You have one shopping cart that's for wage earners and clerical staff, and so they spend a certain way. And then you have another shopping cart for the elderly, and they spend a certain way. And so it makes sense if we're going to look at the cost of living adjustment every year, it makes sense to use the CPIE for the elderly instead of the CPIW. But right now they're using the CPIW. So they should change that, right? Congress hasn't changed it. But if they were to adjust it, let's look at the cons first. It's going to increase expenditure. So basically, people who are elderly spend money in different ways. And so if they did make some changes to the cost of living adjustment, that would mean that more money will go out to the elderly. More money will go out to people receiving Social Security benefits. And so that is going to cost more for the Social Security Administration to send out, more money that they'll be sending out in that case. Potential political resistance. And so, like I said, they've been talking about the cost of living adjustment forever, but they haven't made any changes to that metric. Administrative complexity. And so if they do have to make changes, then they're going to have to do different calculations and all of that. So that would be a little more complex. I don't think it would be that hard, but nonetheless, it would still be a challenge for the Social Security Administration. Short-term financial strain. and then a risk of over adjustment. And so basically, are we doing too much? If we made this metric change, is this going to mean a windfall for people receiving Social Security benefits? In my mind, who cares? If they adjust it and it goes over and people are receiving a little bit more money, that's good, because right now the cost of living adjustments are not keeping up with inflation. So if you change the metric, maybe they'll keep up with inflation better, and it will help cover all those years where the cost of living adjustment didn't keep up with inflation. Okay, so let's look at some of the cons. So it reflects true living costs. And just like we talked about, the CPIE better reflects senior spending. And then we have here, keeps pace with inflation. We talked a little bit about that. Then enhances financial security, addresses healthcare costs, and supports housing affordability. All right, let's look at number 5. So the last one here, introduction of a minimum benefit guarantee. Now, this is something that I've heard only a few politicians talk about, but I think that more politicians should be talking about this. And we're talking about, basically, just look at here, components of the minimum benefit guarantee. So your living standards aim to maintain a livable income, threshold level, ensures a minimum income for beneficiaries, contribution history, role of contributions in benefit calculations, and I'll explain all this in a second, and then beneficiary eligibility, criteria for receiving the guarantee. So basically, what this minimum guarantee would do is it would say that we have a floor, and that floor is going to be, and some politicians say this, 125% of the poverty line. So anyone receiving Social Security benefits is going to be at 125% of the poverty line. So they'll be above the poverty line. Right now, you have a lot of people receiving Social Security benefits, and they're below the poverty line. And some people are living solely on Social Security benefits. So you can imagine how they're struggling. They're below the poverty line, and all they're receiving is Social Security. They don't have a 401k. They don't have a pension. They don't have any money saved up. And so that's the reality. And so you do have politicians that say, you know what, everyone receiving Social Security benefits should be at 125% of the poverty line. And that would help. And so that's what they're talking about here, having a minimum guarantee where we have that floor, but put that floor above the poverty line. So those are the 5 changes that we could see in 2025. If you guys have an idea of some more changes or you've heard politicians talk about different changes, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.